Thank you very much for the opportunity. And most of all, I love to teach. I've always kept a foot in academia. Back when I finished my undergrad at the University of Texas at El Paso, how many of you have seen Glory Road? Dept, College of Mines, that was my alma mater. And I was brought into the fold there to teach a course in the private sector and criminal justice, which gave me a lot of leeway to work that class into a security management area. I'm different than most criminal justice types in that I'm not really affiliated with law enforcement, courts, or corrections. I consider myself to be a fourth entity because I consider things that we need to do in order to avoid involvement in crimes. We have too many crimes that occur in so many different environments, and I'm of the persuasion that a lot need be done before the fact. I teach at Euler, and I've got an intro to criminal justice class that I do for them. I do crime and science. I do a comparative criminal justice class. I do cybercrime, and I've introduced the area of security management and protection of assets. I hope to be able to do something with that. What I do in the crime and science area is essentially try to work to bring people, students, up to speed to recognize that these fine gentlemen and the people that support them in their organization cannot do a whole lot if shoddy investigative work is done on the field. These guys are not miracle workers, and the people that are doing things for them are certainly not able to create evidence. If things are not done properly out on the field, that is a problem. I'm very much a person that deals in the areas of best practices, procedures, checklists, protocols. I've done quite a bit of consultative work throughout my career. I've had a number of different jobs. The majority of them have been as a consultant, where I don't have to be somebody's employee. I can work under a contract. I can work as hard as I want to, charge as much as I can, get away with, and so forth. And probably the nice part of that is I get to send an invoice to the attorneys. They don't bill me, I bill them. And at the same time, I help people to stay safe in various environments as a result of making people recognize that they have an obligation to pay attention to their environments. They have an obligation to report things to law enforcement. They have an obligation to share information and maintain ethical conduct within their various types of working environments. I share that with my students. At the same time, I also have to dispel in them the CSI effect, which I know some of you recognize. Some of you have served in juries, I'm sure. How many of you have been in juries? Jury duty. How many of you have been on criminal cases? How many of you might have expected there to be a little bit more than what actually went on in court as a result of the orientations that you received in the media, the orientations that you've been exposed to in movies and so forth? And I'm not criticizing all of that because there is a lot of good that comes from that, but the real world is not really like that. We don't always have blood. We don't always have DNA. We don't always have expert testimony. Most of the time, we don't have a lot of those things that we expect to see. And a lot of us are left disappointed, wondering, how are we going to solve this case, and so forth. You know, I saw this on TV, and they did this. You know, what's wrong with these guys? You know, what's going on, and so forth. The real world is not like that. At the same time, I also push science, technology on my students. They have to know how to work with spreadsheets. Accounting, I push on criminal justice majors. I realize it's not part of their curriculum, but if they do not know how to manage money, if they do not know how to manage budgets, how are they ever going to be a supervisor and manage money and so forth? Information technology is huge, and certainly if you want to be in the crime lab, you got to have biology, you got to have chemistry, you got to have statistics, and you need to know how to communicate, point blank. The world is not going to open up for you. You have to know which buttons to push. You have to know what to do. And most of all, us at Euler, we're there to answer questions. We are there as a resource. We have done things in our careers that has left us with an obligation to bring up the next generation. That's why we're there. I considered myself to be semi-retired. My position before I moved to Little Rock as a result of my wife's affiliation with AT&T Yellow Pages, I was working as a contractor for a Swedish security company that had contracts with General Motors in 37 countries. My territory was Latin America, Central America, and Mexico. I did that for about 3 years and saw a lot of things that I don't really want to get into and so forth, but I really wanted to get back so I can help my wife raise my daughters. And found myself with a lot of extra time at home here in Arkansas and say, honey, I got to go back to work. This is driving me crazy. I can do so much yard work and other kinds of things. So academia came calling back to me. I went to Euler and knocked on the door and said, I want to work here. And they said, well, we don't have an opening, Mr. Garcia. And I said, that's okay. I do want to work here. And I kept calling and calling, going back every week and so forth. And they finally gave me an adjunct position, and we managed to turn that into a full-time position. I hope I can do a few things with that. I'm not really wanting to see the crime lab have more activity in terms of volume, but what I'd like to see them do is to have the ability to focus more on the work that they have.
Will you pull your microphone up? Thanks.
And be better at it rather than have to deal with large volumes. Again, we have too much crime, and we need to do something about that. We need your help.